In this episode, we are going to talk a little bit about Marvel, talk a little about should you get an iPad or a laptop. Also, we're going to talk about this idea of, is the world really that bad, or is it just bad because we know it's bad? We'll talk about all that and more today. My name is Luke Clayton, and this is the Must Increase Podcast. Welcome to the Must Increase Podcast. This is home of ChurchMediaHQ and Connection Culture, and our mission is to increase truth and inspire hope in the lives of your church, your business, your family, and beyond. As I mentioned, I am your host, Luke Clayton, and I'm joined by, you got to be a dad by now by the time this releases.
I would think so, if I'm not.
If not, your wife is just like, please.
Yeah.
But this is Bo Snyder. Bo, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, so this is the third episode of the Must Increase Podcast, and the second episode experimenting with our new-ish format, I suppose. And let's dive right in. Let's go into stuff we like. If anybody's got an idea of a more creative name out there, by the way, feel free to share it. Let us know. But stuff we like, that's what we're going with for now. This is where we take and give you recommendations for maybe movies, shows, books, podcasts, things like that. Kind of give you reviews, tell you what we enjoy, and maybe even from the time, hey, what we don't enjoy. Like, here's some stuff we don't like. But for today, Bo, what do you got for stuff we like?
Actually, I need you to go first because I'm still deciding in my head.
Oh, okay.
I need you to go first, actually.
I'll go because this is a little bit of a good example of stuff we don't like. If you will, but I want to like. And that is this. Marvel Phase 4. I got to say. So we did an entire... I think it was two episodes.
We did, yeah.
Breaking down phases 1 through 3 of Marvel, from Iron Man all the way to Endgame. And in my opinion, not every movie's a winner, but what they call the Infinity Saga is awesome. Infinity War and Endgame are rich. There's a lot of Marvel haters out there, and I get it. It's not original, it's just superhero stuff. Okay, but look, here's the thing. Phases 1 through 3, the overall arc, the story was beautiful. This Phase 4, in my opinion, is giving a lot of fuel to the haters, and I can see why. There have been two properties that have come out in Phase 4 that I've really enjoyed, and that's Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home. These were both really, really good.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, it doesn't mean that everything else has been total crap, but these are the two that I think have been really good. So Loki was just a mind-blowing series, very well made, but just a really original thought. I did a full episode back in, it's on the YouTube channel if you want to look that up, where I review Loki. So I'm not going to dive in all the specifics, but I'm just saying Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home have been the only two I've really enjoyed. All the others there's been some good ones, like the latest Thor movie's all right.
Not seen it yet.
Yeah, go see it. It's fun. Here's the thing. Thor is becoming just a comedy, though. Like the last two movies, it's just like that. The he's a friend from work. That one. I mean, it's a lot more of that.
Well, best lines never.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And so it's a lot more funny. Christian Bale's a great villain. He's the villain in this latest Thor movie. So that's pretty good. But, overall, like I said, the ones that stick with me, like Doctor Strange 2, not great.
Yeah.
Eternals, absolute hot pile of garbage. Probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, dude, every time you talk about that, you are just like that.
Yeah, I did a full review on that one too. Yeah, it really is. It's horrible. Like Black Widow, it wasn't bad, but it just had no purpose. It was like, oh, it's a prequel to what?
Listen, I tell you, when I saw that, I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like, what are you trying to tell me? I didn't, because we're big on plots. We're big on, like, okay, they're going to bring this around to something? Yeah. Because I remember, I told you, the opening scene, like with the airport, like them trying to get away, whatever. I'm like, this is epic.
This is good, really
and then all of a
intense.
sudden it's like, that was the best part of the whole movie. I don't know. It just fell apart to me.
Yeah, and like I said, and then overall, that's the thing about these Marvel movies. You're supposed to be fitting into a bigger picture. Yeah. And since you're a prequel, because Black Widow's dead. Spoiler alert, she is dead as of Endgame. This movie comes out afterwards, so it is a prequel to her, like in between whatever. I
forget the timeline
placement.
Sometimes.
But it's just like, so what? And yes, they introduced like her sister and a couple of new potential characters, but at the same time, it just doesn't feed the bigger plot. And if you're going to be in a part of a cinematic universe, you've got to do that. Yeah. So all that to say, Phase 4 has...
So Marvel should have called us, is what we're saying.
Yeah. No, I will say this. I do know that everything, the pandemic messed everything up. They had to completely reshift everything.
I know.
That's the thing about Marvel, because all the movies connect and the stuff connects, they had everything meticulously planned out, and then when the pandemic hit, they said, okay, now we've got to shift to release these streaming series first.
Yeah.
So they had to remap everything. I know that. So that had to be difficult, and maybe that's why it seemed a little bit aimless as we're getting there. But here's the good news. Like I said, really like No Way Home was great. And then Loki was great. We are almost, I think the next Black Panther movie is the final movie of Phase 4. Then we're moving into Phase 5. Phases 5 and 6, they've revealed what this saga, so 3 phases make a saga, 4, 5, and 6. It is the multiverse saga. And it makes sense because that's what Loki introduces. That's what Spider-Man No Way Home really... Big part of Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh man, yeah, it was. I can't believe you didn't know the spoilers to that. Like, we watched that for the first time streaming, and you didn't know. You didn't know any spoilers at the time, correct?
I mean, all I knew was there were
the villains. You knew the villains were coming back.
Yeah, I knew the villains were coming back.
But you didn't know that the 3 Spider-Men were going to be.
No, I did not know that.
Spoiler alert, but you've had plenty of time.
Oh, if you're
But
did I tell you what I thought was going to happen in that movie?
No.
I thought I told you that. I thought because the Dr. Octopus, whatever they call him, whatever. What does he call it?
Doc Ock.
Yeah, there you go. Because like you could tell like he was trying to like change, like he thought he was gonna go back to a good guy, whatever. I thought the first part of the movie was that he was actually gonna get all these villains to like, oh, they're good now, and then I thought the other guys were gonna come back and like try to defeat them in their own story, and like it was gonna be like a Spider-Man versus like, no, these guys are good. Like, it was kind of weird, but how it turned out was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, it was.
Man, I remember I was in the theater opening day. I rarely go to movies opening day, but I knew there was something big.
I know.
I was like, I don't want to see spoilers, so I'm there, and that was one of those times where everybody's cheering when Tom Holland, or not Tom Holland, other guy, why am I forgetting all their names now? The Garfield. Andrew Garfield comes through the portal, and then Tobey Maguire. I mean, it's just, everybody's like, yeah! I mean, it was pretty cool.
I think I'm getting off topic. I think my favorite moment in that movie was, it wasn't that there was dialogue, but when you saw the first few minutes that Maguire was in there, it was just this vibe of, I'm old. Yeah. I'm wise. Yep. I've been here.
Because that's what they're portraying. Yeah. They're like, hey, this is like listen years later. Yeah.
It was weird. It was kind of like, almost like you froze in time all these years. Then he comes, I don't know, it was just, which is exactly what they're trying to do. Just like, what are they doing right now?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So
we're geeking out a little too much there.
I was going to say, anytime we talk Marvel, it's a risk because...
That's true.
But anyways, my point is that, hey, Marvel Phase 4 was kind of a mess, but Phase 5 is good. The next Marvel I'm really looking forward to is the next Ant-Man movie, because supposedly that's diving into a lot more multiverse stuff.
Oh.
Now, look, I have seen the multiverse attempted on screen. DC tried it with their CW series, which all those CW series are stupid. I just couldn't get on to any of them.
Yeah.
But their attempt at explaining a multiverse was just absolute trash.
Okay.
I think Marvel's done a good job. Loki, if you watch Loki and you're like, oh, okay, I get it,
Yeah, it's good. I need to watch that again,
it's crazy. It's far out there, but at the same time, they explain it well. So I like where they're headed with that. I want to see them do more with that. Phase 4 and 5 should do that, phases 5 and 6 should do that. So I am looking forward to how.
If you could, this is just random question. If you could only watch Loki or WandaVision.
Loki.
I figured you'd say Loki.
WandaVision's cool. WandaVision, by the way, I thought you might need to see Loki to set up for Doctor Strange because of the multiverse thing. But actually, WandaVision. You need to watch WandaVision if you want to be prepared for Doctor Strange. Okay. Loki apparently is setting up more of Ant-Man. So anyways, that's my stuff I don't like but hope to like more as we move on. Okay. Bo, what's yours?
Well, this is kind of it's not one thing, but it's maybe it's a philosophy. Maybe?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Go for it. Leave it to Bo. Me, I'm not on Marvel. You're
no. Listen, I have lately, and Luke, we're podcast guys. We are content guys. Okay. Something I have failed to do a lot in the past is balance. Meaning, I would say on a average, I probably consume. Actually, I've never really tracked it, but I'll just break it down for you. I probably listen to 4 or 5 sermons a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I listen to Jim Rohn motivation content every day on the way to work, the way to and from. I mean, I listen to Dave Ramsey tidbits on YouTube. Well, while I'm driving, mowing the lawn, whatever. Okay, I'm always in this mode of learning. I should be listening to something good, whatever. But there came a point, I did that so much, I was like, I can't listen anymore. So I actually started, like, some days, I'm like, I'm just going to listen to comedy today. I'm going to listen to Jim Gaffigan or somebody that, even if it's not, like, comedy, just someone that's just talking about something else. Because I get in this thing where sometimes I go, I can't listen to more sermons. Like, I can't read at night because I've been listening to something all day.
Yeah.
So I've actually tried to, I'm just going to listen to something like, is it even worth anything? But it's funny, makes me laugh, kind of, it's the balance of my brain, kind of, and I kind of laugh to myself, and then it's just like, okay, I'll listen to something serious later.
Yeah.
So I've tried to balance that. It's weird.
That's really interesting that you say that, because actually in the next episode for our Stuff We Like, I'm actually recommending a comedy podcast for the same reason.
Okay.
So
I saw that name. I've never heard of it. I don't know much about it. Well, I'll let you wait on that.
So we'll get there. So because of that, and because I spent so much time blabbing about Marvel, we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that because there's a lot there about that.
Oh, I know another one. I started listening to History This Week, and that might sound, it's very educational, but I love it. It's kind of like it relaxes me in a way, but it's not like me like, hey, how can I make more money, or how can I, budget my time or what? It's like, no, this is really cool. It's just kind of kind of like we like to exercise our imagination sometimes. So anyway, I've been trying to balance.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Input.
It's really interesting you said that, because like I said, we're circling back to that in the next episode. So next episode Stuff We Like, we're getting back to that. But for now, we're going to move on to questions and questions and if you know, you know. Questions and answers. Remember, you can text your questions to 615-900-4461. That's 615-900-4461. Bo, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one. It's not written. Well, it's very short, but we may have answered this before. But
remember, all new podcast technically.
That's true. All new podcasts. Everything is new. Okay. Is there a way to monitor devices from one central hub?
Yeah. Okay.
Meaning, someone has a family of 5 kids. Someone is like, hey, I'm in charge of computers. Is there some kind of software? Like, hey, I can turn things off. I can monitor what my kids... Because we know we can do this. We've actually done this on our podcast. Hey, we actually go through our settings, and I can do things individually, but can you... Hey, this applies to all the devices under my house or whatever. So turn off times, lockouts. Yeah. Essential place for it to do that.
Yeah, so like you said, we did a full episode probably over a year ago where we actually screen shared iOS, and we said, here's how you set down and lock down all the things, like to block adult content, limit what type of apps you can download, time limits, things like that.
Yep. Push notifications, all that kind of stuff.
All that stuff. Yep. Now, what has developed probably since then in terms of an update to iOS is now you can do all of that remotely.
Okay, you can.
Apple has something called family sharing, where you can go in and connect your Apple ID with your kids. It's their individual Apple ID, but you can connect the two, and you can connect with like your spouse and whatnot, and everybody can be connected in a family. And you can designate kids as kids or as children, or I forget what their term for it is, and then someone as a guardian, whatnot. So there's different permission levels built in there. Right. Then that allows you to go into device by device and say, just remotely, like, oh, yep, you know what? Now you only get 1 hour a day on games instead of 2. You can go in and, like, for example, like my daughter, I've been she's only 5, but I've been experimenting this with her because I've got this old like iPhone 6. I'm just letting her kind of using it to experiment. But then I can go in and I can say, for example, I can limit who she can contact. She can only contact like me, her mom, her grandparents, her aunt, her uncle, like people, like just completely limited to who she can contact. And I can change it just remotely on the fly. So this is probably the closest to what you want. And here's my thing. There are other apps, like there's what's it called, Life 365 or Family 365? It's like a third-party app you can download. I think that does, like, that's an app that supposedly will like notify you if your teenager is speeding. My daughter's only 5, so I don't need to worry about that yet.
Yeah, not yet.
But the third-party stuff is great. But what I love about this is built in is that it's built in. And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
the best way to lock down something is just to use as much as you can what the device can do on device.
Okay.
And so, I would say look into that, the family sharing thing. And we probably should revisit that because
It's been a while, and I'm not a big man of updates. You're good on that kind of stuff. Sometimes, you're better at knowing the new.
But and then also with that, you can track. You can know your location of your family members and stuff through the Find My app. So that's probably the best best way to go about it is to look in the family sharing and restrictions, screen time and restrictions, and all of that. Okay, Bo, what do we got next?
Let me see. What do we got here? I got one more. Oops, sorry, caught me off guard there.
So
right,
good.
Here we go.
Take your water.
Yeah, pretty simple, but I guess a good question for somebody. Should I get an iPad or a laptop?
Okay,
that's a good question.
That is a really good question because
especially with how far they've come.
Yes,
that's a good question.
Yeah, so here I have to say the iPad and the laptop. And by laptop, I'm gonna assume we're talking about a MacBook because they're made by the same, made by Apple.
Is there anything else, Luke?
Yeah, I know, right? So I'm going to go with that. I can't speak much to Windows and Chromebooks and things like that nowadays. Now, all that to say, should I get an iPad or a laptop? It really comes down to how you're going to use it. And I think the bigger question now is what device have you become most accustomed to? So, for example, we talked about this, I think, in the first a couple episodes ago. We were not born with the iPhone or the smartphone in our hand. Okay, it was given to us later in life. Like we said, we can remember a time when there was no smartphone, things like that. So I became more accustomed to actually using a computer.
Yep.
For computer style work.
Sure.
I converted from Windows to Mac when I was like in college, but it was like, hey, that's what I grew up with. I actually talked to a guy the other day, he's a little bit younger than me, he's a pastor, and he told me, this blew my mind. He said, I have gone through all of college, my whole adult life, all I have ever used is a phone. In college, he typed papers, he took notes, he did all of this, all from his phone.
Wow.
And he said, it's just nothing to me. It was just, so because he was asking me the same question. He was saying, should I get I got somebody in my church, they're offering to buy me, just what I need to do my job. I'm a new pastor. So what should I get? And I said, you know what, man? Any other time, I would have told somebody a laptop. But because you're so used to iOS, which is an iPhone, an iPad is really, it's iPad OS and iOS are becoming different. Yeah. But they're still, I would say iPad OS is still more similar to the iPhone than it is to Mac.
I would say so, yeah.
And so because of that, I said, you will adapt quicker, I think, to an iPad.
Yeah.
So really, I think that's your biggest question. Also, though, budget is a big question because iPads are still a little bit cheaper. Now, if you want to get an iPad souped out with the keyboard and all that attached to it, actually, you're going to get pretty similar price range-wise if you want to do it right. So it's a very hard question to answer.
Well, we've talked about this before, the only thing that I would interject that may be a factor is simply what are you going to do with it? If for any reason you're creative. So I'm not going to go down that trail too much.
If
you're using heavy software, okay, maybe an iPad can't handle that stuff.
That would be right. Yeah.
But that's going to be different forever. Not yet.
I think it's coming. In fact,
it may be.
This fall, I wouldn't be surprised if there's this real beefy iPad Pro released.
Okay.
With an M2 chip and 16
when is the yearly Apple? It seems like they always have like a big reveal.
At time of release, we're probably just a few weeks away from them announcing an iPhone.
Okay. But what are they up to right now?
They are on iPhone 13. This will be the iPhone 14.
Wow.
I know it's crazy.
I still have a 10.
Really?
Yeah, it's still fun.
I've got the 12. I don't know. I never got to 13. I don't know. We'll probably be talking about that when the time comes. But they're probably going to announce iPads sometime in the fall. Anyways, all that to say, I think you should. It really depends on what. Let's put it that way. What device are you coming from? What device have you traditionally done most of your anything on? Most of your email, most of your mobile banking, most of your whatever. And what tasks are you going to be doing? If you're going to be doing anything video, you need a Mac. Okay, anything video. Yep. But even like design, I can't believe I'm saying this. Apps like Canva and stuff, they've come a long way. I'm actually starting to use Canva a lot more. I'm probably going to do a dedicated either I don't know if it'd be an episode, but maybe a YouTube series on that at some point for churches out there. All that to say, it really depends on where you're coming from, what you're going to be doing. But either could be an option. So if you're coming from an iPhone, being more used to using an iPhone, I'd say get an iPad. If you're not going to be doing any high power level stuff like video editing, if you're coming from using like Windows, yeah, let's switch over to a MacBook. It'll be most familiar. The transition will be seamless there. So, all right, next question there, Bo. You got it there, or here, I'll just read it here.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think we're shifting into our topic, today's topic, which is it kind of comes from this question: are we really living in the worst period of history, or does the media just make it seem that way?
Wow, that's a really good question.
It's a really good question, and here's what I don't think probably should have done some research here and had some facts and data to back this up.
Facts.
But facts, who needs those? But in all seriousness, you look at let's rewind the clocks. Let's rewind the clocks a year. In the words of the Joker. No, let's rewind it 100 years. Let's go back to, I guess the 1920s. Okay, would have been the Roaring 20s.
Yeah,
that would have been the greatest time to be alive,
sure.
if you will. It was the Roaring 20s. Think about though back then what they did not have. Obviously, none of this technology,
of course.
podcast, internet,
Oh,
screens, as far as mobile screens, all that stuff. I don't even know if they'd invented. No, they hadn't. They hadn't even invented a computer by then. Like in the 30s, these big room-sized computers came along. Nobody's going to the moon yet. Nothing like that. AC is not a thing really. I mean, it might be if you're rich. In fact, I was reading the other day that's a lot of the reasons back then that people went to the movie theaters, because the movie theater was one of the few places that had AC.
Oh, really?
That's why summer movies became popular.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Originally.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so, but think about it, they didn't have that. Yes, they had some cars. They had cars, I suppose, and some things. But I mean, if you really thought through, that was the greatest time to be alive, or whatever. And a lot of times the 20s. The early 1900s, if you will. I say 1900.
It was the Industrial Revolution, a lot of new things. Yeah.
But a lot of the old timers, if you will, think of like the 1920s to the 1950s, probably be the golden age, whatever. But think about it. I mean, again, like it's not like there weren't wars. It's not like there weren't people getting killed.
Political unrest.
Yeah, it's not like that
they
stuff
had it all.
Yeah. And so my thing is this: is I think there's a lot of validity to that thought of. Yeah, things just seem bad because we know they're bad.
Yeah,
so
true.
Rewind the clocks even further back to the 1800s. We were talking about this off the mic the other day. The movie News of the World, Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I kind of wish it would have been more or whatever. It was an interesting concept. But basically, Tom Hanks plays what they called an 1800s newsman. His job was to ride a circuit town to town out west, and he would just take a stack of newspapers with him, different newspapers from different parts of the country and of the world, I suppose. And he would show up, and he'd get like in a church or in some type of assembly area. Mm-hmm. People would come in, and they'd pay a nickel. And what he would do is he would read them the news of the world, because a lot of people were illiterate, and because hey, they didn't this news, they might get their local paper rather, but their news of the world, they couldn't get, the New York Times necessarily.
Right, yeah.
And so he brought the news of the world and he read it. And but think about how long you would have to wait to hear something simple.
Oh man,
I mean, just to hear that. I mean, I always wonder, like, baffles my mind, how did like election day work? Like right now we get instant results. I mean, we know within, I mean, this past time we had to wait maybe like a week, to get things finalized. But most times, like, we know within the same day.
Yeah.
And think about back then, it's like, all right, I'm going to go cast my vote. Now I got to take all them votes, throw them on a horse, ride them up to D.C. or the Capitol or wherever, count everything. And then, now we have a president. And now we got to go tell everybody. I mean, that's a weeks or months long process.
Isn't that something?
You would have a president for months and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
And so, but now, on the other hand, I mean, like I said, it's all instantaneous.
Yeah.
We take out our phones and we know of everything, good and bad. And what is dominating the news cycle? Of course, the bad.
Of course it is.
Because that's what turns heads. That's what, if it bleeds, it reads. And so, I think there's a lot of validity to that statement of the world has always been bad. And if we're going biblical on it, the Bible tells us that. It says the world will grow worse and worse.
No, there's I mean, I'm not a theologian by any means, but all you got to do is read. I mean, holy cow! I guess it's really sprinkled throughout. I mean, Jericho. I mean, if you're getting to like,
going real biblical there.
Yeah, I mean, like when you the cities that Paul called out, like, hey, this city is bad. I mean,
Corinth? Oh.
Yeah.
Nasty.
So I think there's got to be some kind of word for it, but this mystical, when you think of the past, you think of just this, things couldn't have been so bad.
Yeah.
Things must have been better. It's like, no, I mean, and I'm not a pessimist by any means, but there's always been sin.
Yeah.
There's always been, pick a sin. That's always been there, but maybe it's never been broadcasted that it's been there, So it's one of those things that there is no, once again, I hate to put it this way, but there is no glory of this time where there was no evil.
When it was like
Yeah, it's like, well, it's always been, I mean, the Lord himself destroyed whole cities because he couldn't take it anymore, So it's just that now I think is, actually, I had a guy ask me the other day, random story, where I work, our delivery guy, he's a big thinker. We always talk. We always ask each other questions, whatever. And I'm probably going to slaughter it. But he said, would you rather be, what was it? It was informed and miserable or ignorant and happy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I'm going a little too far on that, but it's one of those things where it is a problem because we now know. Mm-hmm. We know everything, and I actually one of my favorite things to talk about for in a high school class is the Vietnam War. I've told this story a bunch of times. I love this story. World War II was not near the technology as Vietnam was, and the amount of support for World War II was huge.
Yep.
Everybody gave to the war. Everybody was, we're going to win. Everything was amazing. It was incredible. And then Vietnam, 20 years later, was the most hated, not supported thing because it was on television.
It was televised,
The world actually saw it happen, and it changed everything forever. So it was just one of those things that war has also gone on for literally thousands of years.
Yep.
But people never actually saw it until the 70s, and like, oh, wait, no, this is no good. We got to get out of there. So it's kind of like one of those things where when things come to light, people think this is the worst time ever. It's like, no, it's just, we're just more informed now. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Side note, by the way, if you want to, you did that full breakdown. It's the first 5 episodes of the actual podcast. If you're in the podcast feed, scroll all the way back to episode 3 or 4, it's there. And you do. It's a fascinating thing. And so, I mean, I would say that, because think about all that we can do now that we couldn't do hundreds of years ago, 100 or 100 years ago. I mean, think about it. I mean, literally, we can go anywhere in hours, as far as anywhere in the world. Within a day, you can be there if you wanted to. I mean, like I said, and that's physically. And then the information you can get from all parts of the world is instantly.
Yep.
And I mean, that is a blessing and a curse. But I mean, look, I won't deny. Is culture worse now than it was 100 years ago? Probably. It's probably worse than it was 5 years ago. It's definitely worse. But the truth is that we are also very, very blessed. And so,
oh man, yes.
So that kind of takes us into the weekly challenge. Look, the world's bad. Okay. It's probably, as far as a whole, it's going to continue to digress, at least gradually. That's going to happen. But remind yourself often of how blessed you are, and how much you have. Practice gratefulness. Be thankful.
Yeah.
And instead of thinking, hey, oh man, I hate this. I hate the news, and that guy, that daggone politician, whatever. I mean, we could say a lot about them guys, couldn't we? But I mean, in all seriousness, let's just be thankful. Let's be grateful for what we do have. And again, this comes back to the overall mission of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Where if anything does need to decrease, it's our focus on the negative. Yes, we have to acknowledge it's there. It's like you said. Yeah, that's a good question. Would you rather be ignorant and happy or miserable and informed? I think there's a happy medium, obviously.
I think so too.
But I think it's okay sometimes to detach.
Yeah.
And say, you know what? I'm going to be ignorant for the day, for the week,
yeah.
whatever. I'm going to live in happiness because you know what? Those people back then, news of the world in the 1800s, they didn't know till they knew.
Yeah.
And until then, everything was just the same.
Right.
Everything was fine. So let's practice a little gratefulness. Let's remind ourselves we're blessed. Any final thoughts there, Bo?
Man, I don't know. I think I feel like I kind of ran it on that.
Yeah, you kind of jumped to him early there.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I always give my final thoughts before I give
yeah.
I gotta start just saving but I don't really have anything to add on to that, but I gotta start saving it for the end.
Well, of course, they can connect with you on your website, bowcentervideo.com.
Yep.
What's your Instagram? Bowcenter Video. It's the same, right? It's all the same. Is that correct?
Yeah, Bowcenter Video.
Yeah. So connect with Bo there. Remember, text your questions to 615-900-4461, and we may answer those in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places that you listen. Share the podcast with your friends, pastors. Maybe take a moment to share it with your church. And you can connect with us online at mustincrease.com. And we look forward to having you with us next time as we continue to increase truth and inspire hope in the lives of your church, your family, your business, and beyond, right here on the Must Increase podcast.